In an important order, Maharashtra RERA has allowed a home buyer to exit a real estate project, Ruparel Sky Greens, asking the developer to refund the entire amount paid by the home buyer along with full interest due to him. Now, the home buyer had booked the apartment in April 2017. The builder had promised a delivery date of 2019 in the marketing brochure, but he failed to do so. He continued to advance the delivery date of the project multiple times, first saying 2021 on RERA and then again extending it to 2022. Now, the court ordered full refund plus interest, which in effect would mean that the home buyer who has paid rupees 55 lakh would now get additional rupees 15 lakh along with the refund. This is a landmark judgment by any RERA authority which takes serious note of misrepresentation or any fancy promise by developers in their marketing brochures. Now, the Maharashtra RERA order comes on the back of a similar judgment passed by the Supreme Court in February this year in the case of Skyon, located in Golf Course Extension Road in Gurgaon. The developer advertised that the project offered state-of-the-art facilities such as home automation, Wi-Fi, high-end video security services. The Apex Court recorded the findings of NCDRC, which is the highest consumer court, that the amenities which were promised by the developer had not been provided by the project in the apartment. Now, will these two judgments together work to deter the industry from overpromising and under-delivering? Abhikshit Moral joins us for that answer. Abhikshit, I mean, there is such a strong voice from the legal system asking developers to shape up. Is it going to help?
Looks like at least this is the beginning for us, for sure. It kind of addresses quite a few issues that were, raking for quite some time. And this order actually comes as a refreshing order for all of us. And like you've already mentioned the facts of the matter, which I think, people also have to be careful because some of these issues, especially relating to project materials, get covered not only under Section 12, which is the section that you are referring to right now, misrepresentation, but it also gets covered in other sections. So, as a home buyer, if I'm aggrieved, you have to be careful on how you approach the court and what your strategy is. So that's something that I've been advocating right from the beginning.
Okay. So, Abhikshit, I mean, if I go back into the history and not just history, even today, if I look at so many of the marketing brochures, there are from parking spaces to green zones, golf courses or golf course views, which are promised in a project, but they don't really materialize. Now, this is probably going to come as a very strong deterrent to the industry that be very careful on what you're promising. But the larger question is that there have been several times that RERA orders have simply not been complied by developers. How do you get that to happen now? I mean, what happens here if the developer says, I'm not going to make the refund or pay the interest penalty?
No, so that's a very interesting question, Manisha. In fact, it leads to a larger point which I feel needs to be addressed here. For instance, the examples that you were giving right now of people promising golf course views and in the case of Bombay, sea views, and suddenly the view is gone. And, suddenly there is a new structure that is being brought up. Now here, if you remember the way the law is framed, it does not allow a developer to make changes to a layout. So if he does, or if at all he wants to make a change in the layout, he actually has to take consent of home buyer. So the point that I'm trying to make is it is not merely a question of enforcement. Of course, I'll come to the enforcement point also. But I'm also trying to say here that in many cases, we've seen that there are also delays on the part of home buyers approaching the court. It should not be that late, like a stay cannot be granted because the work has already started. So there's no point of granting a stay. So your right of exercising your powers under the Act has to be done in a timely manner. That's the first point. Now coming to the enforcement issue. Here I have a slightly different view, Manisha. I'll reiterate Mr. Puri's statement a few days back, on this same issue when he was asked on the enforcement. So he very rightly mentioned, and I agree with him, that the law actually provides for recovery. The problem is not in the Act. The problem is actually in the enforcement. The enforcement mechanism, the boots on ground are not sufficient today to ensure that we are able to recover these orders in the same manner how a municipal corporation would rather recover the dues, right?
So you're saying RERA needs to be armed with more people, compliance officers, that's it?
That's one. And Manisha, the Act also allows the state to come up with rules. The rules may be different for different states because the strata is different, the geography is different. So there's nothing stopping the Maharashtra government from coming out with rules which makes it more stronger, the enforcement part more stronger. That if you don't pay up, let's say within a particular period of time, this is what can be done. The property can be attached or the permissions can be revoked. Things like that,
Okay, so you've actually given us a very nice ending saying that there's nothing stopping the states to ensure that compliance of RERA order does happen. There are rules which can be strengthened and there's also manpower which can be strengthened. It's not any rocket science. Avikshit, thank you very much for taking our viewers through this important judgment and its consequences for their protection. Now, this is our quest to make the housing sector more accountable and clean for the consumer. So, we will keep bringing you important judgments to understand what your rights are as a home buyer. And thank you so much for joining us today. Goodbye.